There we go. That's the way to set it off. Well, happy birthday, America. Happy celebration of America's birthday to Americans and all of our continued friends and allies and people abroad who support us or may, support. I mean, that would be a miracle in and of itself, for various reasons. Not to be political, you know. In fact, I may reshoot this intro to this video. And why on the 4th of July? Oh, because it's the 250th anniversary of the United States. This is supposed to be a big deal. And those of you who are at least my age and older remember the bicentennial and how big a deal America's 200th birthday was. Now, I was only 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So I was only 5 years old in 1976. So there's very, very little that I actually can recall about the bicentennial. But thanks to the magic of modern media, what I ended up doing with a lot of things that are, from that era, my adolescence, toddler years, my terrible, to whatnot, that season in my life where I was just barely aware of like how to walk, is that I generally use the mighty power of YouTube and social media to search the most prevalent things from that era and see what jogs memories and what doesn't. And when you do that, you can sort of open your mind to that, you'll be surprised as to what sticks, what jogs your memory, and what doesn't. There's some things that will actually feel, and that's the thing. What we feel is a memory is more a matter of our emotions and our biases, social conditioning, things like that. But I do remember snippets like anybody else from that era. But this isn't really so much about me. I'm just trying to relate to people who may be older and remember more of the bicentennial. I mean, my God, Ford was on his way out and Carter was on his way in, and a lot of people post-Watergate were sort of in a malaise as we are now. It's just that the country kind of came together almost last minute, almost day of, and just got into it, because these events, if we're going to mark every 50th, and I think that's too far in between. I think it should be every 20 years and then every 50 years. I think 2051 will be 275. That should be a big deal, rather than going for every 50. Anyway, hola, ciao, au revoir, konnichiwa to my friends around the world, and here I am in, of course, what is obviously what I like to call grandma style. There's a line right here, but it doesn't. That's custom-made Americana t-shirt. And one of the reasons I'm showing you this fit, so here's the fit, and look, it's actually very, very cool. Even though I did order this today, I sort of make some changes to the collar. I didn't make this. I feel deeply inspired by it. I literally only wear this during the 4th, and I've got combat pants on, fatigues, and World War II combat boots because of the occasion. And I've got the Navy flight jacket and the Grizzly jacket on display. I don't need to display an American flag. I'm a veteran, and of course we Americans always wear the American flag, so, it's not disrespectful when I'm a veteran, so who's going to tell me, if you don't like it, fight me, whatever. And true to, Americana, we display this thing everywhere, anywhere. You can never have enough flags, but what's interesting about this, that's unique about the U.S. also, is that it's a hodgepodge of different things. Ralph Lauren did not invent this. This is something poor people the world over have been doing for centuries. Every country in the world has been taking older garments and sort of retrofitting them. It's more of a working class unity sort of thing. What Ralph did is what he always does, is cherry pick the best of Americana from a given age and then elevate it to almost luxury status. And I chose something that was like this when I was coordinating with my seamstress to create this almost, grandma, mama type hodgepodge, is because it represents so many ways. It's got my military service stuff in here. This is my career field in the military. This actually represents, of course, it's a tiger, so it kind of represents the fact that I served in the Pacific and Asian cultures. And this represents, oh, look, another flag. I've got flags on both shoulders, and I didn't even wear. I've been wearing, I've owned this thing since the pandemic. I've got flags on both shoulders and didn't even realize that. Both flags. And tartan here because we're multicultural, and you know what tartan represents. It comes from Europe, the islands, the Irish people, and all that. And yet this is blue, the whole thing. It's sort of self-explanatory. I don't necessarily need to lead into what this is all about, because you can tell by looking at it and thinking about it, retired United States Navy, that this whole thing is a not so subtle theatrical representation of what today specifically, but this whole weekend is all about, the best and the worst. And with the prediction that, don't be disappointed if you're not happy with the way things are going. I know a lot of social media content creators on one side are, this isn't as good, the celebration isn't as good as it was for the bicentennial. It was hijacked by the powers to be, all of that stuff. None of that I'm disagreeing with or agreeing with. I'm saying, do better next time. This is a democracy. Create the reality. As an American, you've got the freedom to create the reality you want to live. Get you and your buddies together and vote for the type of leadership you want to see in, the type of decisions you want made. Pay more attention to the details. Where Americans, I think, have lost the plot, as British people say. I love that saying, and I'm going to steal it from them, but acknowledge that I'm stealing it from them, unlike people that steal from us. Where Americans have lost the plot is democracy is as much about your local politics, your details, what's going on in your state, and your ability to educate yourself to get the results you want. And stop idolizing people at the top. Stop saying, well, the solution's simple and there ought to be a lot. If I just vote in this guy, everything's going to be better. No, sometimes you need to venerate one individual of a personality. Look, democracy doesn't succeed under the ideal of a cult of personality. It wasn't designed that way, especially, and it's susceptible to that, especially because democracy is majority rule, right? Get used to at least sometimes finding and seeking real research on what these people actually stand for, beyond what the algorithm on, this devices like that, what you're watching this on, the way you're seeing this and the way it's coming to you isn't decided by me, and to some degree it isn't decided by you. I mean, they sort of take into account our behaviors and what they think we like, what we're looking at in the middle of the day and what we're looking at 2 o'clock in the morning, and factor in what they think we want to see and feed us that, which is fine for certain activities and disastrous for politics, because then you're uninformed. You're an uninformed American, you're an uninformed voter. So if you want to see better, don't just watch one source, watch multiples and compare, try to, it's not that big a damn deal or that hard to educate yourself and figure out, all right, who do I want to vote for that's going to really help me and help the most people that I care about, and actually not lie to me and then drag us into yet another forever conflict, because that's what's happened. It's very interesting how much people on both sides, especially the progressive sides, and I'm just going to complain about this, it's 4th of July, right? I'm trying to bring us together. There's certain mistakes we need to avoid to be brought together, and that is, I love TikTok, but make no mistake, there's an agenda behind all this stuff. There's an agenda behind a bajenda. It's a bajenda that's like a bajillion. There's an agenda behind a lot of the social medias, and there are people who, I finally got one of those little microphones. I don't have it. I'm going to use it tomorrow. I'll charge it up. The little microphones that look like little hairy little Afro people that everyone's using to sound intelligent. I got one of those. It's not charged, so I didn't even think about it, but there's biases into what type of content is allowed to go through and what's blocked. A content creator who's another guy into music on YouTube found out his videos were being copied and reproduced with AI. It's a nightmare. He's trying to get an AI that is copying his content taken down off YouTube, and YouTube is acting like, we don't see anything, what's going on? All of that's by design. People who create content, the technology may be democratized, and everyone can use it, but the platforms that are controlling the technology are still very much in control of people with an agenda. Be aware of that. Be aware of that. There's just so much, because it's really about a celebration, and I should focus on that. So what I'm going to do is, this will be the blog post, limited access video of this version, and I'll do another short sort of intro. It's more happy, joy, all that stuff, because I'm not unhappy. In matter of fact, I'm thrilled to at least be able to have this platform and not be under threat of demonetization and all those sorts of issues. I love wearing this shirt. These are both pockets, by the way. They're not just something I don't know that or not. It's so comfortable and so cool. Unfortunately, it's a very early prototype to spin everything back around to the shirt. But the shirt reminds me of America, which reminds me of how we're in a weird place, which reminds me of liberty and the pickle that we're in, which is why I sort of spun off into this tangent about what we can all do to sort of make sure that the democracy stays on track, because, it was founded with high ideals by people we call our forefathers and venerate, but who were also deeply human, very flawed men. They were a bunch of slave owners, for God's sakes, who were fighting for freedom, their liberty, but they understood that by making amendments to the Constitution, the country could grow to even be bigger, better, and more idealistic in the standard of democracy than what they were creating. They understood, okay, historical purposes, we're going to be venerated because we are the forefathers, we are the starters of this, but what this can become is even greater than what we can exist in and imagine. That's why I don't necessarily beat them to death for being slave owners, because I think just by the physical act of adding amendments and making it possible to add more, they knew that there were corrections and advancements that could be made. And it's so strange to me how, again, Americans who, we can do anything, yet you get so many, especially baby boomers, and a lot of younger people just go, well, that's the system, can't change it. No, it's literally built into the system that you can change it. It literally is. You're just being lazy and you're being a dumbass. And there's the price for being a lazy dumbass is you fall right into the hands of not people who want to take away your liberty. They actually don't care whether or not you have an illusion of freedom or have the real thing. The way things are spinning, because one of the major tech companies is announced they're getting rid of physical media, which should be no surprise to anybody, but a bunch of gamers are now upset. And here's the connection I'll make, and then I'll just save this video, put it on my blog, and make another video that won't be so controversial. People that like movies and are fans of movies have been setting aside their physical media for a couple of decades now. VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever it is, because they've seen the writing on the wall. Sony just announced that it's going to stop making physical video games, and now, the gamer nutheads are upset, losing their shit, wilding out, however you want to call it, cracking, I don't know, whatever term, stupid, trendy TikTok term is there. And I'm like, yeah, dumbass. The plan is for you to own nothing and pay for anything. They don't necessarily physically want The Matrix to become a documentary. I mean, we're already living in a situation where Idiocracy went from being a comedy satire to a democracy. The end goal is for The Matrix to become, at least in theory, the reality, if not, literally, but at least figuratively. We're just kind of I'm using living in a fantasy bullshit world. As long as we're happy and getting our dopamine fix, they're already heading. That's why people don't fuck anymore. Which is why now I know I really can't put this on. People don't fuck anymore because corn is free. And people kind of know and feel something's wrong, and there's some sort of fight against it. Why don't people, getting together, having traditional family? It's because Young women are being indoctrinated to go one way, whatever you want to call it, however you want to deal with it, and young guys are being indoctrinated into another way, neither of which are really natural. Do men need to focus and go their own way to an extent to achieve? Absolutely. But nothing's ever been stopping men. It's so corny, the whole, you know, BYS, whatever movement, you know, men go your own way, black men go your own way, MGTOW, whatever you want to call it. Nothing has ever been stopping you, fuckers, from having enough self-control and confidence to just simply finish school and get a career. That's what, you know, the going my own way, I'm not focusing on women. Well, yeah, that's called maturity, dumbass. You know, it's crazy how, not that, you know, and women with the same thing, walking around, patriarchy will get us all their little, all those side issues, they're not true movements or callings except anywhere online, because they want you to feel that everything online is reality when it's not, and that everything you see online should reflect real reality, which it doesn't, and it shouldn't. And it's just, you know, because you notice no one is really eloquent anymore. Everybody's all like, well, you know, it's all by design. And the end goal is sort of like the Matrix, where everybody's kind of just this fat, dumb, happy dumbass that gets to live whatever reality they want, and they're taking from us our energy and whatever else they need from us, and we will own nothing but pay for everything, while the elites are on top, you know? And that's, I don't even really see that as a conspiracy theory, because that describes a modern super technical version of feudalism and every offset power structure that has existed since we decided to crown one guy king for every nation. And then of course that king could stay in power by either effing over his own people with heavy taxes, or telling his own people that the people over there who don't look like us or speak like us or worship like us are the enemy, let's go fuck them. And while he's got his people under him worried about those others, he can be raping their women and putting his hand in their pocket, do whatever. It's the same scam and it's centuries old. So don't come at me with, oh, Sony's gonna stop making physical video games and be pissed off. Stop being stupid, you know. Anyway, that's as preachy as I need to get, because I have wonderful food waiting for me. I have the very few people that God will allow to listen to me, look at me, you know, deal with my shit, because yeah, I'm heavy and complicated, but so is everybody else, you know, who like to spend time with me. And even though I'm really into my fitness and working out, I like to eat, sleep, and be dumb, fat, dumb, and happy. So I'm gonna go enjoy that, and I want you to have that as well for this day. Happy birthday, America, and happy birthday those of us who have served America, and happy birthday, and God bless us who have been fortunate enough to have been born here and live here. And, you know, thank you to all our allies, friends overseas who still support us. Au revoir.